Rintaro is a self-proclaimed mad scientist with delusions of grandeur, obsessed with controlling time and conquering the world using his modified gadgets. In his geeky pursuit of time manipulation, he stumbles upon a bizarre microwave that unexpectedly allows him to send messages to the past. As he investigates the microwave's mystery, Rintaro unknowingly falls into the trap of a secret time-controlling organization, dragging him and his friends into a dangerous race against time. The series kicks off with our protagonist, Rintaro, a young, self-proclaimed mad scientist, contemplating the mysteries of the universe. His deep thoughts are abruptly interrupted by his bubbly best friend Mayuri, and together they set off for a nearby radio station. Mayuri is curious why Rintaro wanted to visit the station and learns that Professor Nakabachi invented the model for the time machine and was going to present it there. While explaining this to Mayuri, Rintaro suddenly feels the earth shaking and runs to the rooftop. There, he sees a man near a strange machine but heads back down after getting another message from Mayuri. He buys her a token for the coin machine and she ends up winning a rare coin. After getting the coin, they head back up to attend the professor's lecture. During the lecture, Rintaro gets angry and calls out the professor for copying his model from a scientist called Titer on the internet. The professor is outraged and claims his model is original, so Rintaro begins arguing with him. However, a girl named Kurisu drags him out of the hall and asks him what he is going to tell her 15 minutes earlier. Rintaro, completely baffled and not recalling any previous interaction, suddenly jumps back. His paranoia kicks in, and he immediately suspects Kurisu of being an agent from some shadowy organization. Kurisu is confused and tries asking him something, but Rintaro pulls out his phone and tells someone that he has been cornered by an agent. Kurisu takes his phone, but Rintaro explains that it turns off if anyone other than him touches it. She tries asking him again, but Rintaro snatches his phone away and runs to another room. He turns on his phone, but sees static flickering on the screen. Afterward, Rintaro meets Mayuri again, who tells him she lost her coin. The two of them try to look for it, but suddenly hear a bone-chilling scream. When Rintaro investigates the sound, he is shocked to find Kurisu lying in a puddle of blood. A panicked Rintaro runs out of the building and tells Mayuri about it before sending a message to his friend about the event. However, right after he sends it, something strange happens and all the people around him disappear. Mayuri once again comes up to Rintaro, unaware of what happened. Rintaro is shocked, but then notices a giant machine crashed on top of the building. Later, Rintaro heads back to his lab where he argues with an alpaca video game character, saying he will cause chaos with his gadgets and overthrow the organization ruling the world. His hacker friend Daru questions if the character can even see him through the screen, and Rintaro responds probably not. Then, the satellite incident appears on the news. Rintaro wonders how the people around him suddenly vanished and asks Daru about the professor's conference. Daru tells him that he was obviously very mad when the professor canceled it, which confuses Rintaro since he remembers attending it. Then Rintaro thinks this must be a Steins Gate problem, and uses a future gadget gun on a TV. Unfortunately, it doesn't work, so he goes to see his landlord Braun to fix it. When Braun demands money for his service, Rintaro thinks he's also an organization agent messing with his plans. After that, Rintaro goes back with Mayuri, remembering the cheerful girl once standing at a graveyard. They go back to their lab and Rintaro uses his secret modded gadget, the phone microwave. He puts bananas inside and something strange happens, causing them to turn into a green gel. However, no other discoveries have been made with this. Sometime later, Daru and Rintaro go to attend his university classes. Rintaro asks Daru about the professor's conference and the message he sent, and he is shocked to learn that his message was sent to Daru's phone 1 week ago. He checks his own phone and sees that the message doesn't exist, meaning that he sent it to the past. A feeling of unease grows in Rintaro's heart, and when he moves a bit more, he sees Kurisu standing in a hall, alive and well. He approaches Kurisu and touches her face to check if she's really there. The girl thinks about calling the police, but Rintaro tells her that she should have gotten stabbed after the conference. Daru saves the day and drags him away from the confused girl, as Rintaro tells her his real name, Kiyuma. He later attends a lecture by Kurisu where she discusses why time travel is impossible. Rintaro argues that it is in fact possible, so Kurisu factually disproves and humiliates him in front of the audience. Rintaro goes out, frustrated with his loss, and visits Mayuri at a forest house. There, he sees a girl named Ruka practicing with her sword. Ruka greets Rintaro with a blush, clearly attracted to him. Rintaro tells her that he needs an exorcism and sends her away to prepare, thinking that it's such a shame that this pretty girl is actually a guy in reality. Rintaro later visits Braun where he meets his new employee, Suzuha. Suzuha learns about Rintaro's strange hobby, researching a mysterious organization that only exists in his mind. Rintaro later checks the internet and finds no signs of Kurisu getting stabbed, wondering if he was just hallucinating. Suddenly, something catches his attention as Rintaro sees John Teeter's name on the internet once again. Apparently, he was a time traveler who came to the year 2000 from the year 2036 to save the world from an organization called CERN, who secretly used time machines for their benefit. Rintaro tries to find more books on Titor, but finds them deleted and removed from his bookshelf. He asks Daru about the books, but is shocked when Daru doesn't even know who Titor is. The next day, Rintaro encounters a strange woman named Moeka, taking pictures of him. She shows him an old PC, asking him for his help if he doesn't want his information to get leaked. Rintaro later shows Daru the PC at a maid cafe and learns that it's an IBM 5100, an ultra-rare PC that nobody could ever find except in pictures. Rintaro then gets information from Moeka that the PC is not in his city. Then, a maid named Ferris serves them their food before they get to work. Rintaro once again examines the weird gel banana he got and puts another batch in the microwave gadget to test it. When they finished microwaving, both kids were shocked to see that the bananas were gone. Rintaro wonders if the microwave's true power is a teleporter machine. They look away, and suddenly, the bananas are back, except one of them turned into a gel banana. Before they can investigate this new result, they get interrupted by Kurisu. Rintaro discovers Kurisu obtained their location from Daru and feels a twinge of betrayal, suspecting yet another Steins Gate conspiracy at play. Kurisu doesn't know what that means, but comes inside to investigate. She tastes the banana, feeling like it doesn't have a taste, and Rintaro asks her to say out loud what tasting his banana tastes like. Kurisu blushes at his inappropriate teasing and reminds him that she can get him sent to jail. Then she asks to learn about his phone microwave, but Rintaro gives her the conditions to join his lab and forgive his crimes. Kurisu tells him that she will leave the city in a few months, and Rintaro agrees to have her for the time being. Mayuri hugs her, feeling happy that she has another girl member. Then, Rintaro asks Daru and learns that he connected his phone to the microwave. It turns out that when Rintaro sent him the message that Kurisu got stabbed, Daru's phone was connected to the microwave. This gives Rintaro an idea for a test. He puts another item in the microwave and connects his phone to it. Then, he makes the phone send a message before starting the microwave. Suddenly, an explosion rips through the lab. After getting up from the blast, Rintaro checks his phone and finds out that the message was delivered 5 days ago. This confirms his hypothesis that the microwave is in fact a time machine that sends things to the past. Later, Rintaro ignores messages from Moka. He feels upset that Kurisu got upset about the time machine and left, and asks Daru to research the strange organization called CERN that Tidor claimed had created a time machine. CERN had reportedly succeeded in creating a miniature black hole using their Large Hadron Collider, a crucial step for time travel. However, they publicly declared the experiment a failure, raising suspicions of a cover-up. Rintaro goes outside thinking about this when he bumps into Suzuha. Suzuha seems to have heard everything, shocking Rintaro that she was spying on them. He asks if he knows anything about IBM 5100, and Suzuha responds yes. Apparently, this strange computer was the only thing that could read earlier secret programming languages from IBM. Tidor warned everyone that time wasn't a straight line, and if a person was killed in one timeline, 2 new timelines would be created, one where they were alive, and one where everyone forgot about them. He also claimed that the IBM 5100 had the ability to stop CERN from turning the world into a medieval land ruled by them. After thinking about this, Rintaro gets Daru to hack into CERN's database, where they retrieve a bunch of emails. They see no mention of the time machine, but see a strange program called the Z program. This program was linked to the experiments creating a black hole, and one of the experiments reported that a person had died during it. However, they can't find any other information on the experiment. Daru finds some Starn IBM code, which Rintaro knows they need the IBM 5100 to read. Meanwhile, we see Kurisu in her room, wondering if Rintaro was really right and if his microwave is a real-time machine. Shifting back to Rintaro, he ignores more of Moka's messages and begins searching for an IBM 5100. On his way, he encounters Kurisu, who drags him with her. Rintaro takes her to the laundry, where she asks him about the time machine once again. Kurisu still doesn't believe that his microwave is the real deal. Rintaro wonders why she's so stubborn, and she reveals that she doesn't want to be hasty and repeat a mistake that her father made. Rintaro then tells her that she's always welcome back in his lab. Kurisu tries leaving, so he grabs her and asks her about the IBN 5100. He tells her all about CERN and their programming language, but Kurisu is less than interested, so she leaves. Back at the maid cafe, Mayuri asks her friend Ferris if she knows anything about this mysterious computer. Mayuri tells this to Rintaro on a call, and he quickly rushes for the maid cafe. There, he sees the start of the show, Ferris, playing a game with all her followers. She tells him that if he wants the information about the PC, he will have to play a game against her. Reluctantly, Rintaro agrees to Ferris's game, his disdain for childish activities warring with his desperate need for information. Before they start, he strikes a deal. Win or lose, she must spill the beans about the PC. Rintaro then announces his secret plan to defeat Ferris, leaving everyone excited. However, it turns out to be just a bluff, as he gets humiliated. However, Rintaro remains confident, knowing that he never promised he would win. Ferris tries to avoid the topic, but finally tells him that she heard that the IBN 5100 was found at a shrine in the city. Remembering the forest shrine where Ruka lives, Rintaro heads out. On his way, he gets a call from Kurisu, who is also interested in the computer. They head over to Ruka's place together, and he tells them that his father does have the IBN 5100, much to Rintaro's relief. Kurisu is amazed by Ruka's beauty, thinking he is a girl, and Rintaro just lets her dream. Once they meet Ruka's father, he tells them that some strange man gave the PC to him 10 years ago, saying a young man would ask for it 10 years later. He takes out the PC for Rintaro and gives it to him, and Rintaro forces Kurisu to carry it back to the lab with him. On their way, they meet Suzuha, who seems interested in the PC. Suzuha sees Kurisu and suddenly grows violent, preparing to attack. She stops when the boss Braun comes out and Rintaro leaves with Kurisu, leaving her to think silently. Rintaro and Kurisu finally get back to the lab, and Daru takes out the PC and begins working on it. He tells Rintaro to get him some parts he needs to utilize the old PC, and Mayuri begins showing Kurisu around the lab. When she shows her a shower only hidden by a curtain, Kurisu tells the innocent girl to avoid using it in front of the two boys. She grows even more suspicious of Rintaro when Mayuri tells her that she's a hostage, but gets confused upon learning that she became a hostage of her own free will. After getting all the parts he needs, Rintaro encounters Suzuha once again. He asks her how she knew about the IBN 5100 and learns that she knew someone who was knowledgeable about science. This excites Rintaro, and he asks her to help him meet this person, but she refuses, saying they have already died. Rintaro apologizes for his reaction, and then asks why she attacked Kurisu. Suzuha tells him that Kurisu isn't a bad person, but she is unaware of her dangerous potential. Then she suddenly ducks upon seeing a helicopter fly by. Suzuha asks Rintaro if there are any fireworks festivals coming up, and he needs them before telling her the directions. She leaves, excited, and Rintaro reunites with Kurisu and Mayuri. Knowing that he's going to work, Mayuri leaves to go home, and Kurisu wonders how Rintaro is so awkward with her, even while being her childhood friend. Then, after heading back to the lab, Kurisu wears a lab coat, impressing Rintaro. The two of them eat and play a game together, where Kurisu mocks Rintaro for always being focused on his own strategy and never thinking about the enemy's move. Rintaro hears her using his first name, so he gets mad at her for not using his alias. This scares Kurisu, and she begins crying, but denies being scared of him. Sometime later, Daru finally manages to decode the CERN code. Inside, they found out that CERN was indeed experimenting with time travel using their Large Hadron Collider. By creating a black hole, they were attempting to send materials back in time but failed because the hole was too small for the mass to fit in. Once CERN succeeded in their first experiments, they began sending human subjects, but none of them survived. All of them died, reappearing as dead bodies around the world in the past. All of these bodies had shocking similarities, being turned into green jelly. Now that they had the method of transportation, they just needed to somehow fit the mass through the tiny black holes. Daru laughs at how dirty this sounds, and Kurisu goes upstairs, ignoring him. She asks him his plan, and the self-proclaimed mad scientist laughs, saying he will just make his time machine before CERN and rule the world himself. The scene shifts to the satellite that crashed at the radio tower. Some reporters find Mocha waiting there and ask if she is interested in the satellite as well. She panics and runs away, opening her messages on her phone. Later, Rintaro runs into Suzuha once again after having lunch with his friends. He notices her staring at Kurisu once again. Suzuha learns about his experiments before Rintaro heads home again. The kids decide to research the microwave time travel once again. They call this time-traveling email the dmail and begin trying to send more messages to the past. Rintaro suggests using the microwave at specific times, and this time their experiments work once again. The message goes back in time 5 days, but it gets split up into multiple messages. From this, they learn that they can only send information of a certain size back in time. After finishing this experiment, Rintaro goes out to get some food. There, he meets Mocha, who tries talking to him using messages. Since Rintaro doesn't have his phone with him, she quietly leaves. On his way back, Rintaro meets Suzuha once again and asks her why she is so upset at Kurisu, but she claims that Kurisu has done nothing wrong yet. The boss calls over Rintaro and warns him to stop his experiments since the electricity blasts keep making his shop shake. Rintaro goes back to the lab to warn his friends to stop the experiments, but gets surprised upon learning that Kurisu has figured out the time travel. She tells him that for every second on the microwave's timer, the item gets transported 1 hour back in time. With this discovery, they now have a way to calculate how much time back they want to send a message. Rintaro goes to sleep, but his sleep is plagued by nightmares. He sees the event horizon of a black hole in front of him, resembling the process of real-time travel. Hearing a voice on the other side, he learns that time is not without its end, even if it continues for eternity, before getting turned into a familiar green jelly. When Rintaro wakes up from this nightmare, he sees more messages from Moeka asking to meet him. She shows up at his lab and asks to borrow his IBN 5100, but Rintaro refuses, saying it's a borrowed item. She then takes some pictures of the PC and learns about his time-traveling experiments. Rintaro knows his plans got leaked, but promises to tell her about the experiment, only if she joins his lab. The next day, they use the time machine once again after checking with Suzuha that the boss isn't home. As the experiment succeeds, Suzuha thinks deeply about something. Back at the lab, Rintaro decides to do something risky, changing time using his machine. He thinks about sending lottery numbers to the past so he can win some money. After deciding on third place so he doesn't attract too much attention, Rintaro begins the plan and sends the numbers back in time using his machine. When he hits send, something strange happens, and Rintaro finds himself back in the same spot. He asks his friends how the experiment went and all of them get confused, not knowing what he was talking about. Rintaro then opens his phone and gets the lottery numbers and a message from the future. The group tells him that they are just planning what to do for the experiment when Ruka comes in with a lottery ticket. He tells Rintaro that he got one number wrong, but Rintaro realizes that all the other numbers were correct, meaning that he had successfully gotten the lottery numbers and given them to Ruka. Rintaro realizes he's successfully altered the past, yet he alone retains memories of the original timeline. He goes out and asks Suzuha about this. Suzuha gets worried about him and checks his eyes to see if he has been brainwashed. However, she finds nothing and heaves a sigh of relief. Then, Rintaro asks her about the time machine, wondering why he is the only one who can remember the future. She reminds him of Titer's time model, and he remembers that each time the future is changed, another timeline is created. The people's memories of the past change, but that does not change the other world, where the event does not happen. That's why in this world nobody else remembers the experiment except Rintaro, because he is the visitor traveling back in time. Suzuha reassures Rintaro of her allegiance just before the boss returns, forcing her to make a hasty exit. Rintaro wonders what to do next and decides to contact Titer himself. Kurisu gets a bit jealous that Rintaro is waiting for someone else's message, but Rintaro is finally able to receive a reply from Titer. Titer tells him that it's not normal for him to be able to remember the other timeline, saying that this is a great power that can be used to change the world. He tells Rintaro that he can possibly change the divergence of the universe by 1%, which would help defeat the world's pending destruction. When Rintaro learns that Tidor wants him to change the future as well, it shocks Rintaro not want to bear such a huge responsibility. Then, Tidor gives him a chilling message that he is qualified to become the Messiah leading the world into the future. Kurisu notices Rintaro's weird reaction and tells him that they should stop the experiments. However, Rintaro remains determined to carry forward with his tests. He explains to her that he has already changed the past and has the power to remember the other timeline. Kurisu is surprised, but Rintaro tells her that he will try to change the past once again to test this theory. If the tests succeed, it means he has the magic power, reading Steiner, that lets him remember the worlds even after moving a world's timeline. Rintaro later tries another dmail experiment with his friends. He sent the winning cards to Daru in the past so he could win his game against Ferris, but the fat hacker ended up losing it anyway. Kurisu wonders if they should keep changing the past, since she doesn't want to lose any of her memories. However, Rintaro tells her that she also has her curiosity as a scientist, and she can't let him down. Suddenly, he gets a message from Moeka asking him to let her send a dmail to the past. Rintaro meets Suzuha the next day, and she asks him how his experiments went. Rintaro notices how much she admires Titor, which the girl denies. Then she sees Kurisu again, and her eyes narrow with suspicion. Afterward, Moka shows up to the lab to deliver her dmail. She tells Rintaro that she recently bought a new phone, so they should send a message telling her past self to buy a different phone. While they're discussing their next experiment, Ruka shows up with a big melon to apologize for his mistake with the lottery. The group finally sends Moeka's message, and Rintaro feels dizzy, showing that the past has been changed. He asks everyone which phone Moeka has, but this time, none of them even remember who she is. Rintaro checks his inbox and finds out that Moeka is alive and well, but she never joined his lab in this world. The next day, Ruka shows up to the lab as well. Mayuri drags him away and puts him in a girly cosplay, which even makes Rintaro and Kurisu question their sexuality. However, Ruka reveals that he had overheard their conversation and wanted to send a dmail for himself. He says that he wants to be a girl because he has always felt feminine, and Kurisu's world comes crashing down as she always thought he was a boy. Rintaro wonders if a message can change a person's gender, so Ruka suggests that from old myths, eating lots of vegetables while pregnant could help the mom give birth to a baby girl. With this information, Rintaro finds Ruka's date of birth and sends the message through a special method to his mom's old pager phone in the past. Once the message is sent, Rintaro gets the feeling that the past has changed again, but it looks like Ruka's gender has not changed this time. The next day, Rintaro discusses this problem with Daru at the maid cafe. Ferris overhears their conversation and asks about his time machine. She is surprised to learn that they can send messages to the past. Afterward, Rintaro goes out to the roof to relax for a bit and sees Kurisu crying on the phone. She runs away upon seeing him, and afterward, he asks her why she is crying. Rintaro tells Kurisu that she is now an important friend to him, which makes her happy, but then he starts laughing evilly, feeling like he tricked her into believing and helping him, which immediately ruins her mood. Meanwhile, Ferris asks Mayuri more about the time machine. Rintaro thinks about physical time travel, but Kurisu warns him, reminding him that anything that tries to fit in is turned into green jelly. Suddenly, Rintaro realizes that Daru hasn't even finished decoding the IBM 5100 code in this world yet. He looks at the computer, only to realize that the machine doesn't even exist in the lab. Rintaro is shocked and asks what happened to the computer, and learns that they never found the IBM 5100 here. He asks Ruka where the machine went, and learns that they don't have it anymore. This change finally makes Rintaro realize that he is playing a deadly game, and any random thing sent to the past can change the world in a major way. Rintaro then asks Ferris about the computer, and learns that her dad did own it. She figures out that this is related to his time machine experiments, and asks what has happened. Later, while shopping with Mayuri, Rintaro notices Moeka walking around and immediately runs after her. He finds her collapsed in an alley where she is feeling down that she lost the IBM 5100. Rintaro comforts her before Mayuri catches up to them. Rintaro asks if she knows Moka and is shocked to learn that in this world, he did bring Moka to the lab and everyone else knows her as well. Afterward, they go to Ferris's house to discuss what she wants. She lives in a luxurious penthouse, turning out to be the daughter of the owners of town. Rintaro learns that when Ferris moved to town, she also brought more culture with her, including the popular maid cafes. Ferris offers to let Rintaro know about the IBM 5100, if only he lets her use the dmail to send a message to the past. Ferris keeps her message secret, but Rintaro agrees to let her send it. After connecting with Kurisu at the lab, he tells Ferris that her message is ready to be sent. Once she hits send, Rintaro feels dizzy once again, and the world changes. He sees Ferris's dad in front of him and asks him for his PC. It turns out that in this world, the man never even gave the IBM 5100 to the shrine and lost it somewhere else. Rintaro then goes down to town with Mayuri and Daru, where Mayuri feels sad that the town doesn't have any more shops. Rintaro feels weirded out since he knows the town does have them, but is shocked to see the shops missing from their place. He then rushes where Ferris's maid cafe and finds it empty, realizing that Ferris told her past self to never bring Mo culture to town, changing the world dramatically. He then asks Daru if he still knows Ferris and learns that they all became friends after playing a game against each other in a tournament. The mood changes as the group begins joking around at the lab. The girls discuss going out in swimsuits, but Rintaro points out that if they go without the guys, poor Ruka will also be alone. This statement causes everyone to fall silent as they all get offended. Rintaro reiterates that Ruka is obviously a guy, which brings tears to her eyes, while everyone else wonders why Rintaro is being so rude to her. Kurisu tells him that Ruka is obviously a girl, but Rintaro thinks she just doesn't know. He grabs Ruka to check for proof that she is a guy, but his mind breaks upon realizing that she really is a girl in this world. As the poor Ruka falls victim to his assault, Kurisu whacks Rintaro to make him leave her. Rintaro later discusses this with Suzuha, shocked that Ruka's gender actually changed in this timeline. He then asks Suzuha the reason for her staying in the city, and learns that she is staying there for her father. Apparently, he might meet her at a special place the next day. Rintaro offers to let her use his time machine to send her the results of the meeting to the past, but Suzuha refuses, saying that she does appreciate his kindness. Afterward, he goes back to his lab and announces to his friends that he will try to help Suzuha if she is unable to meet her father. Suddenly, he gets a message from an unknown number saying they are watching him, which gives Rintaro the creeps. Mayuri later notices his scared expression and asks him if he's okay. She remembers a time when Rintaro got sick, the expression on his face being the same. Rintaro also remembers that when he got sick, he thought he was dying, but then he experienced the same feeling that his reader eye gave him, which could be the beginning of his strange power. After going back to the house to prepare for Suzuha's party, the kids trigger a breaker and it goes dark. As they all panic, Kurisu laughs, feeling happy to be a part of the friend group. She thanks Rintaro for saying she is her companion, feeling happy because of him. However, Suzuha never shows up to the party, and Rintaro is unable to find her. He sends a message back in time to follow her, and goes back, this time following Suzuha where she went. He learns that she went to a conference where scientists discussed time travel, and was searching for her father, a man named Beryl Teeter, a name very close to the mysterious John Teeter. Suzuha thanks Rintaro for the party, and he welcomes her to his lab anytime. He then tells her to distract Braun from his job so he can perform the experiment without any problems. Suzuha takes off her jacket, ready to do her job. She goes to distract Braun, but they trip and hit his TV, turning it off. Rintaro realizes that turning off the TV also stopped the shaking from his experiment. So he turns on the TV, and sure enough, the shaking from the microwave time machine begins happening again. Rintaro later discusses future experiments with Kurisu, and she decides to take things a step further by researching how to send memories to the past. She thinks that if she can find a way to transport the memories from his brain directly to the past, she can send him some time to the past with memories of the future, possibly having a greater chance of changing something. Later, Mayuri walks around with Rintaro, learning about this time leap ability. She feels sad that the person who goes back in time is the only one who has memories of the future, feeling like they would be lonely. They then encounter Moika, who hears about the time leap and asks them about it before leaving. Then, the boss's daughter Nai apologizes to Rintaro for her dad bullying him all the time before leaving. When Rintaro gets back to the lab, he wonders if Kurisu is truly a CERN spy. She brings him outside to talk about her personal problems with her family. Rintaro learns that Kurisu's dad actually hates her. It turns out that her dad is also a physicist who was passionate about his work. Kurisu used to love working with her dad and debating against him. However, she got too smart and started winning against him in their debates, which led him to feel inferior to his own daughter. Kurisu feels that if her dad learned that she built a time leap machine, he might actually go insane with jealousy. Rintaro offers to let her visit her dad, saying that it's his job to make sure his lab members are always satisfied. Afterward, Mayuri arrives at the lab for a girls' sleepover. Kurisu kicks out Rintaro and sends him to do shopping for the girls. At the mart, he receives a chilling message from another unknown number saying he knows too much, with a picture of a bloody face attached to it. Rintaro gets terrified, but then runs back to the lab, worried for the girls. He hears some noises from behind their shower curtain and runs inside, only to see them, both showing together. The girls get naturally upset at him, but notice something strange about Rintaro this time. Daru comes back to the lab and begins working on his research again, commenting that he has managed to connect directly to CERN. This shocks Rintaro and confirms his suspicion that the CERN has managed to connect to their lab and is actively monitoring them. Later, Rintaro sees a strange dream where he is in a desolate land, alone with just Mayuri. Mayuri tells him that this is the Earth millions of years ago before they even met. She thinks that the versions of them here are the original versions, but they will always be united in the countless branching timelines afterward because of their connection with each other. With this final statement, Mayuri crumbles and Rintaro wakes up. He is broken out of his thoughts by Mayuri, who drags him downstairs to show him her cosplay costumes. There, Kurisu tells him that her time leap machine is finished. She explains that with the help of the LHC from the CERN's connection, they can send over the memory data to be compressed by a small black hole, allowing it to be transferred back in time with a person's other memories. She also reveals that the machine is only safe enough if used to send data back to no more than 2 days. Kurisu also knows that they need a live test subject for this risky experiment, and Rintaro immediately agrees to test it. Rintaro also thinks that it's now time to end the experiment and announce the time machine to the world, letting any predators know that he's giving up. After preparing for their celebration party for the time of the leper launch, Rintaro heads home to the lab and finds Daru eating pizza. Suzuha also comes in, still upset at Kurisu. She claims that she has knowledge of the future and knows Kurisu will work for CERN later. After they settle down, Kurisu offers to be friends with Suzuha, thinking that pointless fighting doesn't help anyone. Rintaro is still feeling overwhelmed from the threats he received, so he goes to the roof to clear his mind. Mayuri joins him and comforts him, feeling happy that they're finally ending the experiments. She feels happy that Rintaro now has all these friends and has stopped being lonely. However, their happy moment is short-lived. Daru suddenly alerts the two that trains have stopped around town. Apparently, a bomb threat has forced the town to close. Suzuha is shocked by this news and asks questions. After learning that Daru is connected to CERN, she immediately runs out of the lab without explanation. Then, Rintaro is shocked after noticing that time has stopped flowing. Mayuri also sees her watch stop when suddenly some masked gunmen break into the lab. Their leader comes in and it's none other than the quiet Moeka. She points a gun at the group, saying that CERN will take their time machine. She tells Rintaro that Kurisu and Daru will come along with her. When Rintaro asks about Mayuri, Moeka coldly says that she doesn't need her and points her gun at the girl. Despite Rintaro's helpless begging, she pulls the trigger in front of his eyes and Rintaro's childhood friend falls lifelessly on the floor. Cradling Mayuri's lifeless body, Rintaro stares down the barrel of Moeka's gun. Kurisu's frantic warnings fall on deaf ears as rage consumes him. With a voice trembling with fury, he swears vengeance against Moeka. Suddenly the door breaks open and Suzuha rushes in, defeating the armed men. She distracts Moeka long enough and points out that Rintaro can use the time leap to go back in time and change things again. Rintaro takes the chance and gets on the time leap machine with Kurisu covering for him. As Kurisu also loses her life to Moeka, Rintaro hits the buttons and finally leaves this terrifying timeline. During his time travel, Rintaro remembers that Mayuri lost her grandma at a very young age. She would always visit the graveyard and look up at the sky. But one day, Rintaro thought that Mayuri might leave him if she kept looking up. So he rushed to hug her and told her that she would be his hostage on Earth. This brought a smile to Mayuri's face, and she told Rintaro that she would wait to see her grandma if it meant becoming his hostage and spending time with him. Finally, Rintaro makes it back in time. He realizes that he is back at the time when he went out shopping, and Daru ordered his pizza. Without explaining to Kurisu and Daru, he immediately runs out to find Mayuri. He runs out and finds Ruka, who tells him that Mayuri left just a bit ago. Finally, after searching the whole city, Rintaro finds Mayuri at night. He takes her hand and drags her away without an explanation, desperate to save her. Rintaro takes Mayuri to the station where they realize that the trains are stopped because of the bomb threats. He runs away with her, trying to get away from the CERN agents, and tells Mayuri to run off without him. However, in her hurry, a car comes barreling at her, taking Mayuri away from Rintaro once again. Rintaro manages to perform another time leap, desperate to save her. He thinks that he was too forceful in just dragging her away, so this time he takes her to the subway. At the subway once again, Mayuri's watch stops working. The boss's daughter, Nei, then rushes up, happy to see Mayuri. Unfortunately, she bumps into her a bit too hard, and Mayuri gets pushed off of the subway platform into an oncoming train. As the poor little girl is traumatized by her mistake, Rintaro starts feeling helpless that nothing he is doing is saving Mayuri, and he goes back in time once more. Despite Rintaro's relentless efforts, Mayuri's fate seemed sealed. Whether by CERN's hand or some cruel twist of fate, her life always ended at the same moment, as if time itself conspired against her survival. He starts wondering if it is even possible to rescue her, or if it's just unavoidable fate. Finally, Rintaro grows desperate and decides to contact Moeka himself. He meets her in a discussed spot where he threatens her with a gun. Rintaro tells her that he has the knowledge of the future and demands to know why Moeka attacked Mayuri and the others with CERN. Moeka reveals her allegiance to an organization known as the Rounders, tasked with retrieving the elusive IBN 5100. He asks her why she is still trying, even though he lost the IBN 5100 in this world. Moeka explains that Rintaro already knows too much about time travel, that he was making a time machine and also planning on announcing it to the public. This went against CERN's interests, and it was too late to change their mind now. Rintaro begged Moeka to spare Mayuri's life, saying that he was just playing around with his experiments and never wanted to get into trouble. However, the girl coldly told him it was too late, which forced Rintaro to run back into other timelines again and again. During his time travels, Kurisu starts noticing how frustrated and worried Rintaro looks, so she goes up to comfort him. Rintaro ends up confessing everything he is feeling to her, and Kurisu starts wondering how to save her friend. Seeing Rintaro so hopeless, she cheers him up, saying she will help him no matter what to save their friend. She takes him back to the lab where she explains that she's setting the timer a bit farther back before they finish the time leaper, so Rintaro can try going back and sending everyone away before the machine is finished. Once Rintaro goes back, he discusses the problem with Kurisu once again. She thinks that perhaps the reason why Mayuri keeps losing her life is that something else is wrong with the timeline, instead of just the problem with CERN. Suzuha also shows up and confirms this theory, saying that he needs to change the divergence path of the world beyond 1% if he wants to save Mayuri's life. Suzuha hands Rintaro a peculiar device, a divergence meter, its display flickering at 0.3%. She explains that while altering time can change minor events, many world lines converge towards the same major outcomes like streams flowing into a river. Thus, they need to cross the barrier of this major outcome and head to a world zone where it doesn't happen at all. To achieve this, she takes Kurisu and Rintaro to a secret base where she shows them a strange machine. Kurisu is suspicious of Suzuha and asks who she is, and Suzuha drops a massive bomb by revealing that she is the time traveler from 2036, John Teeter. They learn that she is from a future where CERN managed to get the time machines and control the world, with Rintaro becoming a leader of the resistance against them. Kurisu was also the leader of CERN's time machine research, which is why Suzuha hated her. Suzuha explains that in order to stop CERN from getting the time machine, she needs to go back in time to 1975. This is because in the future, CERN will build their time machine after getting information on Rintaro's microwave time machine. By going back in time and destroying any messages or evidence related to the microwave time machine, he could make sure that CERN never found out about the microwave and never attacked Rintaro or his friends. However, she soon finds out that the time machine is actually broken. Suddenly, some police officers enter to investigate, so Rintaro distracts them while the girls escape. Once they're all outside, the gravity of the situation hits Rintaro. Repairing the time machine is now their top priority. Kurisu outlines a daring plan. Leap back 5 hours, then another 48, giving them a crucial window to fix the temporal mess they've created. He accepts and leaps back in time, this time with a different plan. Rintaro asks Daru to go with him and fix the time machine before 2 days. The fat hacker wonders why it's so important to fix it so quickly and demands a special reward for his services. Rintaro promises that he will even get him a date with Faris if that's what he wants, and this easily convinces the lonely fatty. However, Mayuri points out that they should also remember to try to find Suzuha's dad instead of just focusing on their experiments. Daru gets to fixing the time machine. feeling like it's quite similar to the phone microwave machine. He asks Suzuha about her dad and finds out that she doesn't know much about him. As the machine gets ready, Suzuha gives Rintaro the divergence counter, saying that he'll need to see if her visit to the past fixes anything. Rintaro then asks him if she could meet him in the future, and learns that he had already died then, and Suzuha was just a resistance member. Meanwhile, Rintaro tries finding clues about Suzuha's dad using a little badge she had to remember him. Almost nobody in town has seen the badge, but Rintaro finally meets a man in an alley who recognizes it. After telling the man to give him an update on who the badge owner is, Rintaro goes back to the time machine with Daru working on it. Afterward, Suzuha thanks Rintaro for everything, saying that this will be her final goodbye. She is happy that she made so many new friends through him and made some exciting memories. Rintaro promises her that he will do his best to fight for a free future for her sake. But suddenly, he gets a call from the badge man saying that he knows the owner. As Suzuha watches with surprise, Rintaro runs off to meet the man. The man tells Rintaro that the badge customer was shaped like a barrel. It's a strange piece of information, but that's all they learn from him. Later, Rintaro tries sneaking up on the badge man to see if he can meet his customer. He sees the shadow of a barrel-shaped man and realizes it's Daru. Rintaro confronts Daru for trying to trick Suzuha, but Daru thinks that giving her a sweet lie to hope for isn't a bad thing at all. However, Rintaro disagrees with this. Then, he learns that the time machine can only travel backward in time, so Suzuha can't come back once she goes away. After some time, Daru finally manages to finish repairing the time machine. Mayuri notices the words FG204 written on it, then suddenly claims that she knows who Suzuha's father is. As everyone is shocked, Mayuri reveals that Suzuha's real father is actually Daru. The reason behind this is that the badge man thought her father had a barrel shape. However, the Japanese word for barrel is taru, which is very close to Daru's name and Suzuha's father, Barrel or Daru. She also points out that the name FG most likely stands for future gadgets, a name that only Rinaro's partner would use. Realizing that she has been spending time with her father all along, Suzuha thanks Daru for everything he has done for her and promises him that she will do her best in the past. She hugs her dad for the first time ever, but all the idiot has to ask is what his future wife looks like. Suzuha smiles, letting it stay a secret. After saying her goodbyes, Suzuha finally leaves for the past, but Rintaro realizes that the divergence meter hasn't changed at all. The kids suddenly get a knock on the door. It's a message from Braun, who tells them that Suzuha was someone who died 10 years ago, but wanted him to give the message to the kids. They open the letter and find signs of panic, with Suzuha regretting that she failed her mission. Unfortunately, she did not remember her past memories only until the last year of her life. Thus, Suzuha never went out to take the IBN 5100 from the CERN. In her letter, she tells Rintaro that the time machine broke because he stopped her from visiting her father, so he should avoid doing that again. Guilt weighs heavily on Rintaro as he inquires about Suzuha's fate. Braun's revelation that she took her own life after spending her final year as a mental patient crushes the group's spirits. With this knowledge in mind, Rintaro sends another dmail to himself telling him to not stop Suzuha, trying to change the past. He learns that this time Suzuha lived a normal life but passed away from an illness. She had left her divergence meter for Rintaro, which he noticed changed to 0.4%. With this change, Rintaro waited once again for Mayuri's dreaded death. To his relief, she remained alive at the previous death time, making him think that the plan had finally worked, and Mayuri was safe. However, the attack just ends up happening a time later than expected, and Mayuri still ends up losing her life. Rintaro's frustration reaches a boiling point. However, Kurisu proposes a daring strategy. If undoing one dmail delayed Mayuri's death, perhaps reversing all of Rintaro's time alterations could buy them enough time to find a permanent solution. The enormity of the task dawns on Rintaro. Undoing all his dmails is a Herculean effort. Yet, with Mayuri's life hanging in the balance, he knows he has no other choice. After going back in time once again, Rintaro realizes he needs Ferris to delete the dmail that made her stop bringing Mo culture over to the town. He asks Daru about Ferris's current location and runs to find her. Rintaro finds Ferris running away from some shady guys and takes her away to safety, learning that those guys wanted to beat her at a game tournament, so they were trying to hurt her. Rintaro then explains the future to Ferris, telling her that she needs to undo her dmail, otherwise Mayuri will die. Faris recalls strange memories of her old maid cafe and goes into shock, not wanting to believe that her wish would cause Mayuri to stop living. She then explains to Rintaro that the reason she altered the past was actually to prevent her father's death. Before they can discuss it more, the game thugs catch up to them and knock out both kids. The boys begin dragging Ferris away after knocking out Rintaro, but the beaten boy still tries to protect her. The gang leader is about to rip Rintaro a new one when suddenly a car charges through and takes him out. It's Ferris's dad who saves her and Rintaro. Afterward, Rintaro asks her dad if he knows about the IBN 5100. It turns out that Suzuha did get the PC in this world and gave it to him. However, he had to sell the PC when his daughter got kidnapped, and he needed to pay the ransom to get her back. After some time, Ferris decides to undo her dmail anyway. She tells Rintaro that she's grateful to him for saving her life, and that she doesn't want to be selfish by letting Mayuri die for her father. Ferris feels satisfied anyway because in the past 10 years she spent with her father, she knew that he loved her, and she had fulfilled her dream. So with a heavy-hearted hug, Ferris undoes her dmail, and Rintaro goes back in time again to another world with maid cafes. He meets Ferris there, who surprisingly has her memories from the past. However, even still, Rintaro couldn't find the IBN 5100 at the shrine. Apparently it was at the shrine, but it was lost a year before he came back. To undo all of the dmail problems, Rintaro sadly also had to go tell poor Ruka that she was a guy in her past life. Mayuri gets angry at Rintaro for breaking Ruka's hurt, but he sadly has no choice. Kurisu discusses this with him and learns about his reasoning for it. Rintaro explains that he needs to get Ruka's mom's pager number if he wants to send her a message and undo her gender change. Kurisu tells Rintaro to be gentle with Ruka because she might have been heartbroken as a girl. Just then, Rintaro gets a message from Ruka asking him to meet her at the shrine. She apologizes before telling him that she believes she was a guy in her past life. However, she has a condition for going back to her original gender. Ruka proposes a bittersweet bargain. She'll undo her dmail, but only if Rintaro agrees to be her boyfriend for one day. A final, fleeting taste of her dream. Thus, Rintaro gets dragged into perhaps the first and only date of his life. He asks Kurisu and Daru for help for his date, but the two of them are just about as clueless as he is. Thankfully, Kurisu has at least some sense, so she makes Rintaro change out of his lab coat into something more suitable. Once Rintaro is dressed up, he goes out the next day to meet Ruka at their meeting spot. The two of them walk to a restaurant together, but Rintaro feels awkward knowing that he's acting as Ruka's boyfriend for the day. They sit inside the restaurant, trying to talk, but they fail to break the awkwardness. Rintaro tries his best, but Ruka can see he is struggling. So she asks him if the date with her is boring. Rintaro quickly denies it and runs off with her to have some fun. Ruka remembers the first time they met, recalling that she was trapped by a bunch of bad men. It was Rintaro who saved her at that time, and when she told him that she was actually a guy, Rintaro didn't care, as if he never saw Ruka for her gender. Rintaro nods, then does a double take as he realizes Ruka just casually mentioned memories of being male. Ruka, seemingly unfazed, simply shrugs it off and leads the way back to the shrine. She thanks Rintaro for giving her a great time on their date before giving him her mom's pager number. Then, Rintaro heads back to the lab, preparing to undo Ruka's dmail. Suddenly, Mayuri comes in, saying she saw Ruka on a date with someone. When Kurisu tells her it is Rintaro, Mayuri doesn't believe it, saying that the real Rintaro wouldn't be all dressed up. This gives Rintaro an idea, and he runs out for the shrine again. There, he helps Ruka train just like in old-time sake as master and student, finally enjoying their time together as usual. Ruka starts crying when it's time for Rintaro to leave, knowing that when he does leave, she will have to forget her romantic feelings for him. Rintaro promises that he will always remember the time he spent as her boyfriend, which comforts Ruka. Once Rintaro goes back in time, he confirms that Ruka is a boy now. All that he needs now is to undo one more dmail. Exhaustion and frustration weigh heavily on Rintaro as he realizes he must once again bring Kurisu up to speed on the ever-shifting timeline. He tells Kurisu that this time, he needs to undo the dmail Moeko sent herself in the past to prevent her from searching for him. Kurisu nods before saying that she will head over to the train station with Mayuri while he works on finding Moeko. Rintaro reminds her that he needs to see Mayuri's deadline before taking more action. After planning everything out with Kurisu, Rintaro begins researching Moeko's whereabouts. He finds out her living address and goes to meet her, only to find the place sealed. Rintaro is shocked to find out that Moeko aborted herself, so he waits for Mayuri's death to go back in time again. This time, he He checks on Moeko sometime earlier and finds her sitting in the corner of her apartment with a knife, muttering the name FB over and over again. Seizing the opportunity, Rintaro swiftly grabs Moeka's phone and bolts from the apartment, the door slamming behind him with a sense of finality. He calls Kurisu and tells her to get the dmail ready. However, this time, even after sending the dmail, nothing changed in the world. Rintaro is confused, but Kurisu thinks that perhaps the dmail wasn't enough to convince Moeko to redo her actions in the past. He decides to go back inside and pins down Moeko to ask her what happened. She refuses to talk, saying that she'll stay loyal to FB. However, Rintaro points out the harsh reality for her, that FB will abandon her after using her, leaving her alone forever. This is too much for Moeko to accept, but Rintaro thoroughly drills this lesson into her mind, making her collapse into tears. She tells him that FB is like a mother to her and she saved her when she really needed it. However, Rintaro also finds out that Moeko has never actually met FB, only texted with them. After breaking Moeka's heart, Rintaro gets back to using her phone to send another message in the past. He sends it again, hoping it would stop Moeka from stealing IBN 5100 in the past. However, even this time the result stays the same. Kurisu points out that Moeka probably won't take orders from anyone except her favorite FB. Rintaro begins heading out with this information, determined to help Moko and Mayuri live, and Moko finally tells him the location where she stored the IBN 5100. Once he goes back to the new timeline, Rintaro decides that he needs to get the IBN 5100 for himself. However, Kurisu reminds him that he's not back to the original timeline yet, so doing an extra step might cause him to lose all his progress. She advises him to try to find FB and get Moka to undo her dmail herself, staking out IBN 5100's location in hopes of catching FB. Rintaro is caught off guard when Moka appears. She confesses her own desire to meet FB and offers Rintaro food. Sensing no immediate threat, Rintaro cautiously decides to trust her, for now. Later, Moeko shows Rintaro some messages she got from FB. It mentioned her codename M4, praising her for being so good at her missions despite being awkward. The motherly tone in the messages seemed to be what Moeko needed. Finally, the two of them wait outside the coin locker where the IBN 5100 is and see a man dragging it outside. They follow the man to a train station from where he takes the suitcase by truck and drops it off to a familiar face, Boss Braun. They continue following the package to its final destination and find it heading out on a flight to France, most likely headed for CERN. After this, he regroups with Kurisu and tells her that they need to meet someone they know. He takes Kurisu and Moeko to meet Boss Braun and asks him if he knows about the person called FB. Braun tells M4 that she sold him out, which shocks her since FB is the only person who knows her codename. Braun then laughs and reveals that FB stands for Ferdinand Braun, which is his real name. He takes the kids to the beach to discuss this situation. Moeko is shocked that FB would text her as a motherly woman, but learns that Braun just did it to manipulate her. Rintaro shames Braun for brainwashing young people and taking advantage of them, but he tells her that he has no choice but to do it. He used to be helpless and alone, and needed to do whatever he could to survive. Now he was trapped as CERN's dog to be used for whatever dirty work they had. FB reminds Moeko that whichever puppet stepped out of its string would immediately get eliminated as he pulled out a gun. Rintaro is helpless as Moeko gets shot down, and then Braun tells Rintaro that he is even worse than a dog. Even though he has his current job, he now has a daughter and cannot afford to lose her by betraying CERN. Then he also finishes the job on himself, leaving Rintaro devastated by the tragedy. He sees Moeko calling out for him and takes her hand, looking into her as she desperately, but futilely tries to hold on to her life. After getting Braun's phone, he uses it to dmail Moeko once again. This time it is successful. IBN 5100 is back at Rintaro's lab. Finally, Rintaro only has to go back to one timeline to save Mayuri's life. Kurisu smiles, saying that he'll have to go back to the world where she got stabbed. And Rintaran gets another harsh dose of reality this time. Realizing that he had completely forgotten about his friend, Rintaro calls off the cracking. He decides to put off the dmail plan and tries to think about a way to save Mayuri without losing Kurisu. Kurisu calls him, asking why he has called off the decoding process. Rintaro tells her that they won't be relying on the decoding anymore and need another plan. Rintaro is later walking home at night with Mayuri when she sees him even more silent than usual. The poor girl gets worried, thinking he might be upset because of her. She starts making small talk, and Rintaro also starts chatting up to let her feel easy. Rintaro knows that it's another night of helplessly watching Mayuri get taken away from him. But when a car horn sounds in the distance, he wonders if there is something he can do to change the outcome this time. Thinking that he might be the one holding Mayuri down, he jumps in front of the car to protect her. But Mayuri pushes him out of the way. As Rintaro holds her in his arms, Mayuri wonders if she was at least able to help him this time. Forced to leap back in time yet again, Rintaro's frustration and disappointment are palpable. Kurisu, sensing his despair, implores him to find courage in the face of this seemingly endless cycle. Rintaro doesn't care though, having replayed Mayuri's death so many times and having his friends sacrifice so much for him. He wonders if it was even worth it coming back to a time when he'd still be stuck between saving her and Mayuri. Rintaro then finally tells Kurisu that she will also die if he goes back to save Mayuri, which makes her grow silent. He then gets a call from Mayuri asking him if he's okay and if she can help him. Rintaro goes out to check on Mayuri while Kurisu quietly thinks about her impending fate. Rintaro visits the graveyard where he sees Mayuri talking to her grandma. The girl complains about horrible nightmares where she experiences awful pain, but Rintaro is always there to help her. Sadly, Mayuri could never say thank you to him before her dreams ended. Rintaro breaks her thoughts, saying that he knows where she always is and that she shouldn't be worried about him. He reassures her that he will find a way to fix all their problems and explain everything to her. Meanwhile, Kurisu stands on a staircase thinking about something. The next day, Rintaro gets worried about Kurisu, so he goes looking for her. He finds her on the rooftop of the radio station, lying around. The two of them begin chatting together, but it suddenly begins raining, so they have to go inside. Kurisu's clothes are soaked, so she gets embarrassed and tells Rintaro to look away. Then she sews his clothes after seeing some damage on them. Kurisu remarks that she knows where she got stabbed. She also has faint memories of Rintaro trying to save Mayuri, feeling jealous that he cares about her so much. She tells him that that was the reason she joined the lab, to help him save someone he cared about so much. However, Rintaro knows that he can't accept saving Mayuri at her expense, so he storms out of the place, determined to find a plan to help her no matter what. He goes back to the lab to perform another time leap, but Kurisu stops him, saying that seeing his friend Mayuri get hurt again and again will just destroy his mental health. Rintaro reminds her that he has already seen it dozens of times. Now it's more of an itch in his heart to save his friend than feeling bad for her pain, since he has grown numb to seeing it happen again and again. This breaks Kurisu's heart, and she realizes just how broken Rintaro has become. Kurisu still believes that going back and fixing the timeline is the only way, and Rintaro hugs her out of emotion, remembering all that they have gone through together. He feels sad that he has to leave her behind. But Kurisu thinks that if even her thoughts and memories live on in his heart, it would still mean that she is alive in another world. Rintaro's words resonate with deep emotion. I could never forget the person I love most. Kurisu, caught off guard, blushes deeply before reciprocating his feelings. With time slipping away, Rintaro pulls her close, their lips meeting in a series of passionate kisses, each one etching the moment into his memory forever. After saying an emotional goodbye to his lover, Kurisu, Rintaro resumes his decoding work at the lab. Once Daru is able to find and delete all the CERN tracking files, Rintaro prepares to hit the dmail button to end things once and for all. However, right as he is pressing it, Kurisu rushes in to tell him that she is also somewhere, but he is unable to hear her full message before going back in time. After successfully going back in time and saving Mayuri, Rintaro sends away his microwave teleporter, knowing he has no use for it anymore. Sometime later, Suzuha returns to Rintaro's timeline. She tells him that in the future, World War III will destroy the world, and she needs his help to stop it. However, Rintaro refuses, having already seen the horrors of time travel. Suzuha then brings up another point to convince him, saying that the only way they can avoid World War III is to also save Kurisu. Suzuha explains that the Steins Gate is a plan that he and her father Daru came up with to protect their world from certain doom. Rintaro heads into Suzuha's time machine and goes back in time with her. They go back to the radio station where the conference was about to take place, over to the place where Kurisu got stabbed. Rintaro then waits and sees Kurisu meeting up with none other than her father. Kurisu shows him the papers disproving his theory, saying that they contain the real secret to time travel. However, her father looks more jealous than happy at his daughter's success, and takes the paper away from her, claiming he will get it published under his name. Kurisu gets mad at him for stealing, and this hurts the old man's ego as he rushes to attack his own daughter with a knife. This time, Rintaro tries to protect Kurisu. He makes the man drop his knife and takes it in his own hand, then begins struggling against his grip. Suddenly, they trip over into Kurisu, and a stabbing sound makes Rintaro's eyes widen with shock at the realization that all that time ago, he was in fact the person who stabbed Kurisu. The girl falls to the ground, unwilling to lose her life while her disgusting father runs away after his crime. The realization hits Rintaro like a thunderbolt. His anguished scream echoes through the building. The very same cry he heard that fateful day. The cruel irony of his role in Kurisu's fate crushes him, his mind reeling from the twisted loop of causality. After this failed attempt, Rintaro returns back home with Suzuha. She asks him to try again, but Rintaro doesn't want the trauma again, so Mayuri slaps some sense into him. Rintaro then opens a message from the future Rintaro telling him how to save Kurisu. If he somehow manages to make it look like she died without her losing her life, he would be able to save her life and prevent the time machine papers from being leaked to bad forces. With this knowledge and plan in mind, Rintaro gets energized and prepares to head back in time one final time. After getting some red liquid to act as blood, Rintaro gets on the time machine with Suzuha and makes his final trip. This time, he takes out the metal token that Mayuri got, since the metal token would help the time machine papers be preserved in a fire. After doing that, he hit around Kurisu's stabbing spot once again. Unfortunately, the tomato juice he brought this time got used up. Maybe he was always doomed to fail. This time, he stands in front of Kurisu's father and taunts the pathetic man to attack him, fanning the flames of his ego. The man gives in to his taunts and attacks Rintaro, letting him take the damage in Kurisu's place. After the man runs away like a coward, Kurisu tries to support Rintaro. He knocks her unconscious before making one final painful decision. By jabbing into his own wound, Rintaro is able to cover Rin's body with tomato juice. Grimacing through the pain, Rintaro limps away from the staged scene, his mission accomplished. A concerned Suzuha helps him to the time machine. As they begin their journey back, Suzuha's form starts to flicker and fade. "We did it," she says with a bittersweet smile. "I'll see you again, in the world we've fixed." With those parting words, she vanishes, leaving Rintaro alone to face the consequences of their actions. Back to a clean timeline, Rintaro goes around gathering his lab members, waiting for that final special someone. He eventually meets her, Kurisu, who is also looking for him. Kurisu seems to have memories from the other timelines and considers joining Rintaro when he holds out his hand to her. However, despite his victory, Rintaro would end up in another huge mess soon. One morning, Daru and the others prepare to go to America to attend a game Ferris is playing. They say goodbye to Braun and his new employee Mocha before leaving on the airplane headed to the US. Kurisu picks up everyone at the airport and drops them to her room. Unfortunately, she doesn't want everyone clouding up her space, so she quickly throws them in a motel after they're settled in the new country. Kurisu and Rintaro are unable to sleep in the motel, so they go outside for fresh air. Kurisu takes Rintaro into her room for some questions, wondering what her dreams of strange realities are about. Rintaro explains that those were just memories of her from another timeline, so Kurisu wonders if she actually kissed him in another timeline as well. Unfortunately, Rintaro picks the wrong time to tease her since she shuts him up with a flying shoe. The next day, Ferris wins her tournament while Ruka gets loads of attention being the femboy he is. Rintaro suddenly notices Suzuha walking out of the place and immediately drops his task, running out to chase her. He manages to catch her at a highway stop where he learns that the woman is a different person. However, Rintaro tells her that she looks like a girl he will meet in 7 years. The woman is surprised, saying that a fortune teller also told her that she would get married in 7 years and have a baby. This surprises Rintaro and he realizes he just met Daru's wife. However, now he is stuck on the highway without a car or money. Rintaro wonders if after all the time travel, this is where he loses it all. But thankfully, a concerned Kurisu rushes over to her car. Once she learns why he left, she calms down, knowing it wasn't a big issue. Rintaro, emboldened by their shared experiences across timelines, broaches the subject of their relationship. Those feelings, they weren't just in other worlds, he says softly. Kurisu hesitates, caught between her logical mind and her heart. "I love you," Rintaro declares. In this timeline and every other, his words hang in the air as he awaits her response. With a mix of nervousness and determination, Kurisu whispers, "Close your eyes." As Rintaro complies, he feels her leaning closer. And that wholesome ending is where our show finishes. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video and subscribe to our channel for more quality content.